Hey everyone, and welcome back to Healing Growth.
Yeah.
I'm Lucky, and as always, I'm here with Mika to dig into all the messy, complicated stuff that comes with relationships and personal growth.
Absolutely. Today's topic is one that hits close to home for pretty much everyone.
Oh yeah.
Heartbreak.
Heartbreak oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we've all been there at some point. It's like a universal rite of passage. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
What if we told you that heartbreak, despite all the pain, be a powerful catalyst for growth?
That's what we're going to explore today. We're going beyond the typical get over its advice and diving into the surprising ways heartbreak can transform you for the better.
Before we get into all that, if you're digging these conversations about relationships and personal growth, hit that subscribe button and give us a like. We love connecting with you all.
And speaking of connecting, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic too. Have you ever experienced a heartbreak that ultimately led to some major personal growth? Share your story in the comments below.
All right, so let's get real for a second. Heartbreak hurts.
Yeah.
It's not just you being dramatic. There's actual science behind it.
Right.
Did you know that studies have shown that emotional pain activates some of the same brain regions as physical pain?
It's fascinating.
Really?
One study published in the Journal of Neurophysiology used fMRI scans to observe brain activity in people who had recently experienced a romantic breakup. They found that the same areas of the brain that light up when we experience physical pain,
Interesting.
like the anterior cingulate cortex and the insula, also show increased activity when we're dealing with emotional pain from a breakup.
So that feeling of your heart actually breaking,
Yeah.
it's not just a metaphor.
Right.
Your brain is processing it in a similar way to a physical injury. No wonder it feels so intense.
And because of that intensity, we often try to avoid those feelings, numb them out, or distract ourselves.
Yeah, I've been there.
But what if instead of running from the pain, we leaned into it? What if we saw heartbreak not as a failure, but as an opportunity?
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
How do we start shifting our perspective on heartbreak?
Well, let's start by acknowledging that heartbreak can teach us some incredibly valuable lessons.
Okay.
Lessons that we might not learn any other way. And these lessons, while tough to swallow at the time, can ultimately lead to profound personal growth.
I'm ready to dive into these lessons.
Okay.
What's the first one?
Lesson number 1 is all about self-worth. Heartbreak often throws us into this spiral of self-doubt, making us question our value and lovability.
It's like suddenly you're questioning everything about yourself.
Yeah.
Was I not good enough? What's wrong with me?
It's a natural reaction, but it's important to remember that your worthiness doesn't hinge on someone else's love for you. Heartbreak, while painful, can actually be a powerful catalyst for rediscovering your inherent worth.
So instead of asking what's wrong with me, we should be asking,
what did I learn about myself in this relationship?
Okay.
What are my strengths?
Yeah.
What are my values?
I like that.
What makes me unique and special?
Okay.
Heartbreak can force us to confront these questions and rebuild our sense of self from the ground up.
I love that.
It's like heartbreak gives us this opportunity to hit the reset button on our self-worth. It's a chance to shed the layers of insecurity and doubt that we may have accumulated over time and reconnect with our authentic selves. And once you start tapping into that inner strength and self-love, it radiates outwards, influencing all your relationships, not just romantic ones.
So heartbreak is a self-love boot camp?
It is.
I'm starting to see the silver lining here.
And speaking of silver linings, let's move on to lesson number 2, which is all about boundaries.
Okay, boundaries.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a buzzword we hear a lot these days. But what does it really mean in the context of heartbreak?
Sometimes heartbreak happens because we've compromised our boundaries, maybe without even realizing it.
Okay.
We might have ignored red flags, given too much of ourselves, or allowed our needs to take a back seat.
It's like we get so caught up in the excitement of a new relationship that we lose sight of our own needs and limits, and then bam, heartbreak hits and it's like a wake-up call.
Exactly. And the wake-up call can be painful, but it's a necessary one. Heartbreak can highlight those areas where we need to set stronger boundaries in future relationships.
So how do we actually do that?
Yeah.
How do we learn to set those boundaries and stick to them?
It starts with self-awareness. What are your non-negotiables in a relationship? What are your deal breakers?
Right.
What are you willing to compromise on, and what are you absolutely not willing to budge on?
Right. It's about figuring out what you truly need and deserve in a relationship.
Yeah.
And then having the courage to communicate those needs to your partner.
And it's not just about communicating your needs.
Right.
It's also about recognizing when those needs aren't being met and having the strength to walk away from a situation that's no longer serving you.
That's so important. It's about valuing yourself enough to know when to say no and to protect your own well-being.
Absolutely. And that's a skill that translates to all areas of your life, not just romantic relationships.
Well, heartbreak is a boundary boot camp. Like, it's like, okay, I see what happened there. I'm not letting that happen again.
Exactly. And that newfound awareness and assertiveness can be incredibly empowering. It's about taking control of your own happiness and creating a life that feels aligned with your values and needs.
All right, so we've talked about heartbreak as a self-love boot camp, a boundary boot camp. What other lessons can we learn from this messy but ultimately transformative experience?
Well, there's one more lesson I'd like to touch on in this part, and it's about something we often lose sight of in the whirlwind of a new relationship: introspection.
Introspection.
Yeah.
You mean like looking inward and reflecting on ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
How does heartbreak tie into that?
Think about it. The early stages of a relationship can be so exciting and all-consuming, right? We're caught up in the butterflies,
Right.
the new experiences, the rush of getting to know someone. We often rush into things without really taking the time to reflect on what we truly want in a partner in a relationship.
Oh, I totally get that. It's
Yeah.
like we get swept away in the romance of it all and forget to pause and ask ourselves some hard questions.
And that's where heartbreak can be a blessing in disguise.
Interesting.
It forces us to slow down, hit the pause button, and do some serious soul searching.
So it's like, okay, that relationship didn't work out. Now let's take some time to reflect on what happened, what I learned, and what I want to do differently next time.
Precisely. Heartbreak creates this space for introspection, whether we want it or not. Pushes us to examine our patterns, our beliefs about love, and our expectations for a relationship.
Like heartbreak gives us the gift of introspection, even if it comes wrapped in pain.
Exactly. And that introspection can be incredibly valuable in shaping our future relationships and guiding us towards a love that truly aligns with who we are.
This is all making so much sense. So we've covered 3 major lessons so far: self-worth, boundaries, and introspection. But I have a feeling there's more to unpack here, right?
Oh, absolutely. Heartbreak has so much to teach us, and we've only just scratched the surface.
All right, so we've talked about how heartbreak can be a crash course in self-love,
Right.
boundary setting, and soul searching.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing there are even more layers to this?
You bet. Heartbreak isn't just about the emotional lessons. It can actually change us on a deeper level,
Yeah.
building up our resilience and inner strength.
Okay, I'm all ears. How does heartbreak make us more resilient?
Well, think about it. When you go through a heartbreak, you're facing one of life's toughest challenges. It's emotional turmoil, grief, a sense of loss. It's a lot to handle. But the fact that you come out on the other side, that you keep going, that you eventually heal, that says a lot about your inner strength.
I see what you mean. It's like going through an emotional boot camp.
It is.
You come out the other side realizing, hey, I survived, that I can handle a lot more than I thought.
Exactly. You develop coping mechanisms.
Right.
You learn to process difficult emotions. You build a stronger sense of self. All of these skills, they don't just disappear when the heartbreak fades.
Right.
They become part of your emotional toolkit, equipping you to handle future challenges with more grace and resilience.
So it's not just about surviving the heartbreak.
Right.
It's about the strength you gain from going through it, a strength that carries over into other areas of your life.
Absolutely. This newfound resilience can help you navigate everything from work stress to family conflicts to personal setback. It's like heartbreak forges you in fire, making you tougher and more capable of handling whatever life throws your way.
Wow, that's a powerful way to look at it. So heartbreak, the unexpected resilience trainer. I'm starting to think we need to rebrand this whole experience.
Maybe we should. But before we get ahead of ourselves, there's one final lesson I want to touch on. This one might be a bit controversial, but I think it's crucial.
What's this controversial lesson?
Despite all the pain and heartache,
Yeah.
despite all the lessons learned and the resilience gained, heartbreak ultimately reminds us that love is still worth it.
Hold on, we're talking about all this pain, all this growth, and now you're saying we should still open ourselves up to the possibility of getting hurt again.
I understand your hesitation,
Okay.
but hear me out. Heartbreak is a risk, yes.
Yeah.
But it's a risk that comes with an incredible reward. The chance to experience deep, meaningful connection with another human being.
What if you get hurt again?
Right.
What if it doesn't work out?
Of course, there are no guarantees in love.
Right.
And yes, you might get hurt again.
Okay.
But you know what? You've already proven that you can handle it. You've learned from your past experiences.
Yeah.
You've built up your resilience. You know your worth. You're not the same person you were before the heartbreak.
So it's not about avoiding heartbreak altogether.
Right.
It's about approaching love with more wisdom, more caution, still with an open heart.
Heartbreak doesn't mean you should close yourself off to love. It means you approach it with a deeper understanding of yourself, your needs, and your boundaries. You learn valuable lessons.
Right.
And you can use those lessons to create a healthier, more fulfilling relationship in the future.
It's like you've leveled up in the game of love. You've got more experience points, you've unlocked new skills.
Exactly.
You're ready for a more challenging quest.
I like that analogy. And remember, it's not just about romantic love. Heartbreak can also teach us to appreciate and nurture all kinds of love in our lives.
Right.
Love for family, friends, our communities, and love for ourselves.
Okay, so we've covered 5 powerful lessons that heartbreak can teach us. Self-worth, boundaries, introspection, resilience, and the enduring power of love. That's a lot to digest, but I'm feeling strangely optimistic about this whole heartbreak thing now.
I'm glad to hear that it's easy to get caught up in the pain and negativity of heartbreak.
Right.
But when you shift your perspective and focus on the growth potential, it becomes a much more empowering experience.
So let's be real. Knowing these lessons is one thing. Actually putting them into practice is another. What advice would you give to someone who's going through heartbreak right now?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
How can they start to turn this pain into growth? I think the first step is to allow yourself to grieve. Don't try to bottle up your emotions or pretend you're not hurting. Give yourself permission to cry, to scream, to journal, to talk it out with a trusted friend or therapist.
It's like you have to give yourself permission to feel the pain, to acknowledge the loss and honor the emotions that come with it.
Exactly. And don't judge yourself for those emotions.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way to grieve. Some people need more time than others. Some people need more support. Some people need more solitude.
Right.
It's about finding what works for you and allowing yourself to process the heartbreak at your own pace.
So it's not about rushing the healing. It's about honoring where you're at and allowing yourself to feel whatever comes up.
Absolutely. And while it's important to feel the pain, it's also important to remember that you are not your heartbreak.
Okay.
You are not defined by this experience. You are so much more than the pain you're feeling right now.
That's a good reminder. It's easy to get lost in the sadness and self-blame.
Yeah.
But we have to remember that heartbreak doesn't diminish our worth or our ability to love and be loved.
Right. And one of the best ways to start reclaiming your sense of self after a heartbreak is to focus on self-care. This is crucial. Make time for activities that nourish your mind, body, and soul. Whether it's therapy, exercise, spending time in nature, diving into a new hobby, or reconnecting with friends and family, taking care of yourself needs to be a top priority.
It's like putting on your own oxygen mask first. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. And remember, healing takes time.
Yeah.
There's no set timeline, and it's not always linear. Be patient with yourself and celebrate every small victory along the way.
There will be good days and bad days. And that's okay. It's all part of the process.
Yeah.
And speaking of the process, I think one of the biggest challenges after a heartbreak is avoiding that spiral of self-blame. Those thoughts like, what's wrong with me? Why wasn't I good enough?
Oh, those thoughts can be so insidious.
Yeah.
But instead of asking what's wrong with me, try shifting your focus to what did I learn from this experience,
right,
and what will I do differently next time?
It's about reframing those negative thoughts into something more empowering.
Exactly.
Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, you're looking for the lessons and the growth opportunity.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that relationships are a two-way street. It's rarely ever just one person's fault when things don't work out. Sometimes two people are simply incompatible or they're at different stages in their lives.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anyone is to blame.
That's so true. Sometimes it's just not the right fit, and that's okay. It's better to acknowledge that and move on than to force something that's not meant to be.
Right. And as you move on, remember to stay open to love.
Okay, so many people build walls after heartbreak, but you're saying we need to keep those doors open.
Yes, healing doesn't mean swearing off love forever.
Right.
It means taking the time to learn and grow from your experiences,
Yeah.
to rebuild your sense of self, and to be ready for love when the time is right.
I like that.
It's about being open to the possibility that love can come back into your life in a new and even more beautiful way.
Armed with the wisdom and self-awareness you've gained through this experience. So it's not about avoiding love or protecting ourselves from getting hurt again.
Right.
It's about learning to love better with more awareness, more intention, and more self-love.
That's beautifully said.
Well, I have to give you credit for that insight. You've given us so much to think about today. Heartbreak may feel like the end, but it's actually a chance for a fresh start. It's an opportunity to grow, to rediscover yourself, and to ultimately find a love that truly aligns with who you are.
And that's something worth fighting for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for anyone out there going through heartbreak right now, remember this. You are not alone. It gets better, the pain will fade, but the lessons will stay with you,
They do.
making you stronger, wiser, and ready for the love you deserve.
You got this.
Before we wrap up, we want to hear from you what resonated with you most today. Maybe it was one of those 5 lessons. Maybe it was something else entirely. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We love hearing from you.
And remember, you are stronger than you think.
That's it for today's deep dive on healing growth. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.